it's not even using one texture for everything. It's just using one texture for anything that is repeated. Like,
Mm.
if there's an example in this world, it's probably like they probably use something like that for those planks on the wall or like
Mm.
the tiles on the floor. I'd say there's probably some sort of repetition on there because it looks really high quality. I would be surprised if they didn't do something like that.
Mm.
If they don't, this is a good usage of it specifically as tiles because
Mm.
there's a hard line for each one and you can easily tile it.
Welcome to Metaverse Degen. I'm lying.
I'm Old Man Raptor, and our guest is.
I'm Brikaro.
Oh, thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you on and get to meet you. So thank you for your time. Oh,
Yeah, it's good to be here.
so what is it you do here in this virtual landscape, and how'd you get started?
Um, so I started off. I saw a video by Straws. They now work for VRChat, but they used to be a VRChat video content creator.
Hmm.
And I saw a video. They were talking about like the music scene, and I ended up getting into that because I was like, oh, that sounds interesting, and I needed like a reason to get into VR. Because before I was interested, but I didn't really have like I didn't see like the software.
Hmm.
Like it didn't really appeal to me. Like the hardware did, but there wasn't anything to do. But then I was like, oh, that's something that I could get into. And so I picked one up. I picked up the Index.
Oh,
And I got into that. And then like about 6 months into that, I started getting into like Unity and Blender, making my own like putting together an avatar from a base. And I ended up getting more into Blender than Unity and getting into 3D modeling, which is primarily what I do now. I stream some of that as well.
oh.
Yeah.
So how'd you get into Blender and Unity and how long have you been streaming that?
Primarily just out of like a little bit of kind of like memes in a way. I just started making funny things. So I was like, oh, it wouldn't it be funny if I could make this? And I'm like, okay, I'll like make a mat cap of like Skyrim or something and like have Skyrim reflected in my glasses. And I was like, that was one of the earliest things I did. And after that, it was mostly just frustration at paying for something and then having to fix it myself. And I'm like, if it takes me like 2 hours to fix something that I paid for, it could take me 4 hours and I could do it myself and not have to pay for it. So I sort of like went down a learning rabbit hole doing stuff like that.
Wow. So how long did it take you to kind of get the handle of Blender and Unity in the beginning?
I still have yet to find out the answer to that question because I still don't know everything about it. So once I finally I hit like a break point at a certain point where I was like, it was like an outfit on a previous avatar where I really felt like I knew like from start to finish, I knew what I was doing. And that was like a huge deal to me. And it looked good at the end and I was happy with it. It was like a jacket that I made for an avatar. Before that, I just made like simple props and stuff, but yeah, that was about, I'd say 1,000 hours of Blender in though, but that was just messing around and like not really doing proper tutorials, and you have to sort of get a baseline before you get a little further in.
So it's like
Yeah.
like we hear from most people, it's better to like just mess with it and then get lessons later.
Yeah, exactly. Like my learning philosophy is I only look stuff up if I get stuck. I get that from puzzle games. Like I played a lot of like puzzle games and like difficult video games over time, and like I prefer, like at least to me it feels better when I'm learning something to just have fun with what I know, and then if I get stuck, then I'll look something up, and then I'll progress from there. And I keep doing that. I keep getting stuck, and eventually you build on that, and you can do more stuff.
So what are some of the resources you've used over the years, or people you've had help you?
Basically, there's just a lot of like friends in VRChat that I've met over time. Like a lot in the music scene do Blender work for their worlds or for their avatars and stuff. I've asked them. Somebody I know named Grost has been a huge resource. Just very helpful person. Also good friend. They do a lot of work with like very like dramatic like artsy worlds. And they've been really helpful teaching me like optimization. I was really thankful for that. Other than that, it's just asking people in conversations will just bring something up like a topic, And they'll be like, okay, atlasing. They'll just mention like that as a buzzword, and I'm like, oh, what's that mean? And they're like, well, it's a kind of a complicated topic, and they'll tell me to like look it up. I'm like, okay, well that's still helpful. Just like, because getting the jargon down is like the main part, because when you're trying to do something, it's really difficult to look something up when you don't know what the thing you're having an issue with is called. And like the more you know about that just from like talking to people, the more you'll get like a baseline, just sort of subconscious knowledge to like build on. If that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense, and I'm sure in most fields out there it's about the same. It's kind of hard when someone says you're going to do this thing and that thing and all the fizz bones, and at the end of it, it's just like a bunch of gibberish to you in the beginning.
Other than that, it's just like mostly YouTube. YouTube's a huge resource. Ryan King Art is where I got a lot of my texturing knowledge from. That's a really good channel. The rest of the Blender knowledge is just scattered across various channels. Just look up something and there'll be some dude out there who probably has seen the issue before.
So I'm going to ask you a fun question. What is your favorite thing you've learned to do, and what is the worst thing you don't like to do?
Okay. My favorite thing I've learned how to do is texturing with nodes in Blender. That not a lot of people really do that. I've noticed they use Substance Painter instead. And I feel like nodes are like not really unexplored because people do use them, but like not in VRChat. So like, I feel like that's a fun thing that I've learned to do, and it's like interesting, and I have a lot of fun with that. But my least favorite thing to do is anything with animators in Unity, or not necessarily animators, but just like I guess like the animation section for when it comes to like I don't even know what they're called, animation layers, I believe. That gets really just annoying to deal with. And VRC Fury has helped a lot with that. It's an add-on for Unity, which automates a lot of the simple processes, like adding toggles and stuff, which was just a headache before. Simple to do, but takes time. And so like that's helped a lot with that.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you a question most because I don't know it. You said texturing through nodes. Would you mind explaining that a little bit to me? Because
so
I'm not a Blender wizard.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, so have you seen Blender, like been in Blender before?
I've been in Blender, but if you're to tell me to go to sections, I'd be lost to shit.
Okay. If you're familiar, there's the top of the screen, if you're using the default layout, which you probably are if you haven't messed with it a lot. There's like a bunch of tabs. One of those tabs is the shading tab. That is for creating sort of in Blender shaders. They're not the same as Unity shaders, but they're similar, and you can, in a way, convert your textures into stuff that's compatible with Unity shaders. And essentially what nodes are is they're like, I guess the best way to describe it is like, do you know any amount of programming at all? Just like a little bit?
In terms of programming, the closest knowledge I got is web design. So like it's some HTML, C++, some Flash script back in like 2009.
Gotcha. Do you know what less like Visual Basic is? That you like drag stuff and put it like in front and like link them up and stuff. It's kind of similar logic to that, but it's a little more simple. Like it's kind of like a character creator system in a way. And I honestly think character creators use a similar system. I don't know for sure, but it kind of feels like that. You put essentially like a starting point, which is usually like a texture or sort of like some form of like automatically generated texture, like noise or something, and then you input that into a series of just stuff, and then at the end is the shader, and that outputs the result of that. So like all the stuff in the middle is where all like the fun stuff happens, which is my favorite one to use is something called color ramp. It basically gives you a slider from one point to the other, and it essentially is the amount of like, it's like the amount that the blacks and whites of that texture affect each other in a way. So like if you slide the black one over, it'll affect it more. If you slide the white one, it'll affect it more. And you can sort of mess with that to get like different like gradients. Like this hair was done with that. So like the default hair is white and orange. So I put this through a color ramp, it takes the orange and I change the color to a different color, which is green, and I slide that over, and it kind of goes up like the hair a little bit, and you can create like good fades with that. Like, and it's really useful. That's just one example, and then you can add stuff like math nodes between that, which will affect it in different ways, like distort it, like rotate it, like anything you could do with math in like a shader. And then there's also like the mapping nodes, which are essentially affects how the texture is mapped to an outfit. Like a good example would be like, I guess this shirt, which I made. The this like text is like a metal font that I found on Google Fonts. And I just typed out something, and I then put that on, and it was just flat on there. And I'm like, okay, I want to do something interesting with this. So I put a mapping node attached to that, which lets me sort of slide it around and play with it on the texture. And I like rotated it, and so I mapped it based on the object, which instead of the UV, which allows me to sort of like splatter it around like the whole object, and it makes like a seamless texture. The reason I like nodes specifically is because if you know what like UVs are and like UV seams, there's oftentimes like a UV seam where stuff kind of like gets like off center in a way where they meet. And nodes can avoid that in some ways.
Okay.
Which is really nice.
So why do you prefer, you may have already answered this, but why do you prefer using nodes over Substance Paint and stuff like that?
Honestly, it's just because I have it. I didn't feel like paying for Substance or acquiring it, so I'm just use it in Blender. I don't know. It just was something fun, and I ended up learning how to do it, and I haven't found a reason to pick up Substance. I will eventually, because there's some stuff that I can do in it easier. Specifically, like normal map painting is a lot easier and better in Substance. Like you can paint like welds and stuff, and there's all these like brushes that are really good, and that is something that I would like to have at some point. And apparently you can do that in Blender too. It's just a little more of a hassle.
Okay. Well, it's good to know that. I was just wanted to know your personal opinion. From what I see, the textures and stuff for your avatar, it looks amazing, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, yeah. So you mentioned you stream all your work. How long have you been doing that?
I do. Kind of streaming Blender. Honestly, I gotta think. It hasn't been that long, really. Like I don't think, maybe like less than a year, because I've been doing Blender for about 1.5 years now, and I think it was about 6 months ago when I decided, like, yeah, I kind of know enough about this to like show a workflow on stream and not just not know what I'm doing and be boring the whole time. So like, I think about 6 months ago, I think, when I started doing that.
So what made you want to? What was the moment in which you decided you wanted to stream it?
Honestly, I just wanted to. So I kind of think about this. It's kind of like I mostly just wanted to, but I think like deep down, if I think about it, the reason is I need a reason to finish projects, and if I don't have some sort of accountability, they just kind of go in a folder and I forget about them, or I move on to something else. But I feel like if I stream it, I'm more inclined to take a look at it again, and like oh, so like 5 or 6 people saw me working on this, they probably want to know what happened to that, and I'll like stream it again the other day and finish it, or like actually finish it and show it on Twitter or something. I don't know. Like a sense of accountability kind of comes into that. It's also fun, and people have said they learned some stuff from that, so I feel like it's also somewhat of a valuable stream to at least a couple people.
Well, having some people such as yourself kind of go through the motion of the workflow, I'm sure is really helpful for those who want to learn. Especially, it's not like you get to go to some really old YouTube tutorial of like something else entirely you have to fit for another thing. Seeing what you do. Anyway, I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh, so, sure. Fair warning, I'm a goof, so I'm sorry.
I know.
Hold on, I'll go get the cookies. I'm confused here already, but that's no problem. I'll bring the milk later.
Okay, Brikaro, our entire goal of this is to go so thick in the weeds that Raptor's head starts spinning.
Okay, I can do that.
Alrighty. Explain the entire process how to make an avatar and use as much detailed words as possible.
Oh, God, no. Oh, God, please don't.
Well, you go into Unity, you add a plane, you add an avatar descriptor to that, and then you click upload. There you go. There's your avatar. That's you now.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate it. Hey, I better off just getting a bunch of sticks out of the backyard and plant them in the front yard, and hopefully everybody thinks I'm growing a garden now. It's about the sense of it for me. Oh, boy.
Oh, my God.
Going from making avatars and working in Blender into streaming and doing that as like the type of content, what have you learned about that process yourself while doing it?
Well, first off, I learned that I was actually creative in a way, because before, like, I found Blender and Unity as sort of like a creative outlet. I didn't have a reason to be creative, because I didn't really feel like if I made something it would have any like purpose aside from just making it. And like there is some merit to just making something, but I feel like I need more than that to like drive me to actually do it, and VRChat's a good reason to do that. And so before VRChat, I couldn't draw anything or like make anything at all. I was like terrible at art, and I still kind of am in terms of 2D art. Like if you ever see me like try to paint something, it's terrible, really bad. But I can make pretty much anything in Blender now, and I don't really know what part of the brain activates when you're using Blender and what part of the brain activates when you're like painting or drawing, but there's got to be a different thing going on there, because for some reason that works for me and the other one doesn't.
Well, it could also be based on interest in what you're comfortable with.
It could be, yeah, true. Yeah, but like they also made me like change my philosophy on like art in general, and I'm just like, if you feel like you're not like artistic or something, just kind of try other things, and maybe you'll find something that actually works for you. Because like everybody's creative in their own way, they just need to find an outlet for it.
Well, there really isn't any straight definition of art specifically. I'm those who are very pinky up and fancy. There is a specific definition, but as long as you're creating things, using your brain and your hands to create something, I'd say it still counts personally.
Yeah, exactly.
I've heard a lot of people describe avatar creation and world creation as a form of art, because you are creating a visual thing for people to see in a sense. So
I wish I could say I've created the entirety of my avatar. The actual base of my avatar is by Eastern Wind on Booth. It is an avatar called Charlene. I highly recommend it to anybody who likes this style of avatar. The expressions on it are some of the best I've ever seen. Like it looks so like animated and like happy, and you can do a lot of different things with it. And I really like that. But yeah.
So you work on with bases more than creating them from scratch yourself?
Yes, I have created an avatar from scratch technically, and I will show it to you if you want. It is Are you familiar with the Demon Core?
Yes.
Okay. How long ago was that? But yeah, this is the only avatar I've created from scratch, and this was as a bit, so it should load pretty quick. Yeah,
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So funny enough, this was how I learned how to make visemes on an avatar. Because I realized that visemes are just blend shapes. And the only thing that determines whether it's a viseme and whether it's not is the name. So like you have like the VRC blend shape like .aa or something, and you can assign that to whatever blend shape you want. And in this case, I made it rock the Demon Core side to side and like up and down, and it just like looks goofy. And yeah, just try. Yeah, just trying like funny little things like that. You'll learn a lot.
It reminds me of somebody taking a fountain out of the front yard and adding screwdrivers to it, going, "Mom, don't worry, I tore it apart. You don't have to worry about the funnel anymore." Wow, that's different. You can't say it's not different.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, honestly, that's the first Demon Core avatar I've ever seen, and it looks pretty good.
Yeah, I've never seen one since. I thought there would be more, honestly, because it's such a big meme. But
well, didn't that
I've never
actually
seen anybody
happen
else
at
make
one
one.
point as well? The Demon Core, like there was actual like thing.
Oh yeah.
Whoa.
It was an accident shortly after, either after or during World War II. I think it was like after, where they were like messing with like a thing of like plutonium or something, and it dropped down and like irradiated everybody, and it was a huge disaster. Flash forward like 60, 70 years or something, and people were like, haha, wouldn't it be funny if we made like a joke about this for some reason? Well, and it became a huge meme in Japan for whatever reason.
Well, to be fair, with the internet, they'll laugh at anything. They'll meme everything
for sure.
if you let them. And even if you don't want them to, they'll still meme about it anyway.
Oh, yeah.
So what made you want to make the Demon Core avatar in the begin with?
There was just a time where I just kept seeing memes about it, and I'm like, I could model that. It's just a sphere. Cut it off, another sphere, put it together. That's the Demon Core, and then screwdrivers, which I modeled as well. Sure.
Oh.
Also a bunch of simple shapes. That was pretty early on when I was modeling too, so it was kind of a fun just side project to like practice some stuff.
So
yeah,
who in the beginning got you started or inspired you to even begin working on avatar work?
Really, it was just seeing other people. Nobody in particular inspired me. It was just like I saw other people. And before VRChat, I had thought like, I don't know. I guess I was naive or maybe just ignorant because I didn't know. I thought everybody made their own avatars or something. I don't know. But then I realized like most people don't do that. Most people use bases as sort of like it's like a car in a way. Like you get everybody has a car. Everybody does something different with their car though. It kind of feels like that. And they like personalize it and make it their own.
Fair enough.
And so that kind of inspired me. I was like, I could probably do that and like get started and mess around with something and learn from there. I think it was a video by Fia that mentioned that. Like you could get an avatar base, mess with it in Blender or Unity, and just sort of like see how they do it, and then you learn a lot of stuff that way. Yeah. And on that note as well, on making like seeing how other people do things, video game assets. Like if there's a bunch of resources online where people have posted like ripped video game assets and stuff, you can just take a look at those and see how they put them together. Specifically for optimization reasons, it's very, very good to see how professional like people make stuff for games, specifically for I guess Nintendo consoles, because they have to be, because those consoles kind of suck, so they have to be optimized. Like Switch games are really optimized and stuff like that. Like historical games, you learn a lot of good techniques from those.
So how different is a VRChat avatar versus a video game asset or character?
Not too different. I haven't learned a whole lot about like how those different engines handle like rigging and stuff. I'd imagine it's kind of similar, but in terms of like the modeling process, it's basically identical. They just sometimes older games do different things. They take advantage of like doubling up like slots on the UV. Like if you're like split down the middle, you don't have to UV unwrap the whole avatar. You can UV unwrap half of it, slap everything together like over top of each other, and because it's perfectly symmetrical, it'll have the same like texture or the texel density, or a higher texel density rather, than you would if you fully unwrapped it and like splashed it across the UV.
Oh, the only thing from talking with people I know that's different between the two is Raptor and I learned that video game characters within like everyone's favorite video games, visemes and movable faces as you speak and stuff is very uncommon to use unless it's like in a specific scene or like it's a very specific character. Usually like avatars like as we have in like all the moving eyes and visemes and bones that work with that is very VRChat or VR specific.
I think I don't know if this is true or not, but I think Oblivion had something like that, because I don't think it was fully mocapped. I think it was like they had like Visine so they could accommodate all the different sounds. I don't know if it was like reactive like ours is, but I think they had like a blend shape sort of bank for that game because it looks, you see the same expressions on every character. So it must be something like that.
Well,
yeah, most games don't do that.
No, most games don't. And from what I think it's pretty cool that like a lot of like the avatar creators or even Unity and Blender wizards, you're all techno wizards to me. What you all create and build, but I think it's pretty cool that the level of detail a lot of you creators have with avatars and stuff is quite phenomenal, especially compared to what goes on outside the platform.
Yeah, there's like an immense amount of talent in this community. Like I've seen people who make like genuinely better designed like video game worlds that don't even have gameplay in them. They're just like really well designed worlds. You like they have like extremely good environmental storytelling. Like that's like makes you flow through the world in a certain way. Like Organism, zero gameplay. The only gameplay is walking. I'm sure you've been there at some point. It's like but it's the level design in that world is insane. Like it will always direct you to where you need to go, no matter where you end up. It's fantastic.
It is fantastic. Even though VRChat is a sandbox, I do feel like it's like VR specific platforms, the social platforms, is like creating and training like the future generations of game designers to some degree. At least that's the way I see it. And it's, I do agree. It's phenomenal what people create here.
Absolutely.
Oh, has there been anyone's work that you inspired yourself by or worked into your own stuff?
Really, I can't think of any specific work that has inspired me because I kind of like screwing around on my own in a lot of ways. But I do get some inspiration from a lot of worlds that I go to just as like concepts because I don't do a lot of world work really. So most of my stuff is props and avatars and stuff. So I get most of my inspiration from like video games or anime or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. What kind of video games or anime do you like watching or using?
I can play basically anything if I'm like in the right mood for it. My favorite types of games are like really difficult stuff. I like all the Dark Souls series. I probably would like Bloodborne if I had a PS4. Anything that's like poses a challenge, like Monster Hunter. Fear and Hunger was a recent one that I really enjoyed. Another one I like is Zero Ranger. It's like a bullet hell game. Anything that like poses a challenge and like there's like a gradual learning stage to it. Like I really enjoy that.
So is it that what kind of games or anime have you pulled ideas from then?
I'd say Dark Souls primarily. I really like the aesthetic of just like the medieval sort of like fantasy stuff. I don't make a whole lot of stuff like that. I've made a couple outfits that have those themes. I have like a medieval sort of like Bill Hook looking outfit that I made a while back. And if I make a world, I kind of want to make like a fantasy sort of like house in a way. Just like kind of something like that.
Ooh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So
also fighting games and stuff like that.
Ooh. Yeah. Okay, that's really cool. Well, how often when you play those games with your own knowledge do you like are able to now pick or know what they're doing with them?
Oh my god. So I noticed something in Monster Hunter Rise recently when I was playing with a friend, specifically the very relevant question, because I was looking at it and I'm like, they have like these planks in one of like the hub areas, like these red planks on the floor, and I was like, wait, I can see there's like a pattern here. The planks aren't perfectly the same, but I can tell it's the same texture because you can see like the same splotch somewhere. So kind of what they did with that is they used something called a trim sheet, which is basically just like a big sheet of like textures and normal maps and roughness maps and stuff that all like give data to like make a texture. And they took those planks and they slid them around on that sheet in different places for each plank to give the illusion that each plank is different, but it's all really using the same texture.
Oh.
And I was like, I noticed that because they used that like 100 times in the whole like town. And I was like, no wonder this is running so well, because it's like taking up 0 texture memory. It's like 2 megabytes or something.
Oh. So that is like one good use of optimization you picked on, where they used one texture for everything versus different textures.
Yeah. It's not even using one texture for everything. It's just using one texture for anything that is repeated. Like, if there's an example in this world, it's probably like they probably use something like that for those planks on the wall, or like the tiles on the floor. I'd say there's probably some sort of repetition on there because it looks really high quality. I would be surprised if they didn't do something like that. If they don't, this is a good usage of it specifically as tiles, because there's a hard line for each one and you can easily tile it.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Now, have you do you look at video games differently now that you know like Unity and Blender and how to do all these different things when you play the games?
Somewhat. I have a much more like higher respect for like professionals now, I think, because you can see like what they do, but it also is like, it's humbling seeing something that a professional has done in like a AAA video game, and you're looking at it and you're like, there's like a seam right there. I can see where the textures just like meet. And people in the VRChat scene sometimes get a little like perfectionist on stuff like that too, which I think is good because it means the stuff's high quality. But like professionals do that all the time, and they're just like, it's fine. Nobody will notice it. And like, it's true. I didn't notice it until I spent 1,000 hours in Blender. So like, it doesn't matter a whole lot in some cases, as long as you use it smartly.
What do you why do you think VRChat players and creators care about those little things versus professionals?
I think it's specifically because we're in VR, and so it's a lot like the same reason first-person shooters and first-person video games in general have higher resolution textures. Because like, if you're in a third-person game, you're like up here and you're looking down. You're not going to notice that the UVs are like not unwrapped correctly from up here. But if you're right here, you're going to see it. And in VR, you're right there and you're going to see it.
You know,
I think that's probably why.
It does make a lot of sense, that'd be why, and especially since like in VR versus a regular video game, it's you get to move around. You can move your face closer to a thing. It's not like you're a stagnant T pose or anything like that.
I've definitely seen people. They'll walk up to you and they'll like look at your shoes and they'll be like, "Nice shoes," and then just like pan back up.
Yeah, I've had a few people do that too.
It happens a lot.
I've had a few people do similar things. You're like, your tail looks weird. See, I could see the texture thing over here. It's like, what? I can't see my own ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going there. I'll leave that completely out of the subject all the way around.
You started it, you finish it.
Yeah.
No, because you know what happens half of the time with me being down this small.
Oh my God.
Figure it out, folks. You can understand it yourself.
Oh my God.
You know, I would like to hear from like a professional developer standpoint what their viewpoint on the work that gets done here in VRChat.
Yeah.
I think that'd be interesting.
There's definitely some professionals that are just in the scene. I think a lot of them keep to themselves because they don't want to like get asked to do things, I think. But I have met some people who are like, yeah, I've worked on games before in the past, and a lot of them are really humble about it.
Wow, that's really good to know. I'm not surprised to some degree they're here. I just kind of want to know what they think of the whole like creation culture that goes on here, like with what they do professionally, they get paid for it, versus like the hobbyists who like, I want an avatar that does all these cool things, or I want to make a world that looks like a thing.
Yeah. I think a thing that happens in VRChat as well with the quality is people because you're getting paid for that, you have like an expectation to get it done within the deadline, no matter what. You have to have everything done by that time, which does let you get better and like move on to new projects quicker. But it also means you can't just sit down and work on a project for like a year and a half, generally, unless you work for like Larian or something. But they like there's so many projects in this game that have just taken like a year, like 6 months, something like that, and they look great. Like people spend all that time on it, and like you spend that time in your free time, and you're just like, you could put in 12-hour days and just have fun, like if it's your passion project, like and not even get paid a dime, and people do that.
You know, I've heard like through some conversations, people like build worlds, for example, let's say like the fantasy house you talked about. I find it interesting how long it takes some of those people to like fully flesh out and perfect what they want the world to look like. I wonder how long it would take like within like a professional industry to do the similar thing, because I guarantee they don't spend half as much on the detail as like we do in terms of that.
Some do, if it's like their job. They also have a team of artists. They're like, okay, they have like the modeling team, they have the texturing team, they have the environmental like storytelling team, where they're like, okay, you have to put in like these amount of things like in this area to like tell this specific story, and like they have a structure to it, so it's a little bit more like a procedural, I guess, or procedural, I'm not sure. But so like if you have a game like really really densely packed like storytelling games, like, I'm trying to think, like some sort of fantasy game. I'm not really sure. Like a JRPG or something, like Final Fantasy VII or Baldur's Gate. Yeah, there's all these things, like there's a bunch of like repeating items that they keep reusing, like chests and boxes and stuff, and like they're just organized in different ways, and like that still tells a story, because like what's in the boxes, where it's at, and like there's still a level of detail there that's like really well done.
Yeah, I've.
Whoa. Hi, folks. You folks come and join us on our social and on our Discord. We love to see you there. We have a Patreon, and we have 2 people that have signed on, Training Fangs and Zero. And I hope we get to see you there, folks. We appreciate the time and effort that you make. And my ball's getting out of here because it needs new rubber. Bye.
I'm not a person who like looks at those video games and think, oh, they have to use different objects with everything. No, like in real life, how often will you see the same mug or the same coffee cup, the same plate? It's everywhere. So it makes a lot of sense. You'll see like the exact same fantasy chest or box.
Exactly. Yeah. Or like, how many times do you walk into a store and there's just like a spot on the floor where they cut the brick in half in a weird way, and like the tiles cut in half in a weird way, and they just stick together, and it's like, well, yeah, things like that, of course they happen. They just didn't have room. They didn't fit. And so they shoved it together. Like, that happens in video games too. And, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect in a lot of ways.
You know, I've heard people who work on like houses, like contractors and stuff, people I know who do that stuff real world, pick apart houses and buildings the same way world builders or avatar creators pick off avatars. It's kind of interesting how they're similar that way.
Anybody who gets like any amount of knowledge in like a subject will eventually start to see like between the lines, like everywhere they go. They're just like, oh, I see that specific thing. Like, or like if you're really into like dirt or something, you're like, oh my God, that's a sandy loam, like right there or something. You get way too much knowledge about one specific thing and you can't stop thinking about it.
Well, I'm sure if you spend an awful lot of time learning a thing, it kind of makes, I'd be surprised if you don't think about it that much. Especially, for example, you said you've been 1,000 hours in Blender. I'm sure you spend
probably more now.
Even more than that. I'm sure you can almost guarantee you just think a lot about Blender the same way. Like if you spend a lot of time on the thing, it would make sense it's on your mind all the time.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, and I always try to like encourage people to just give it a try, because it's like you can make a lot of stuff in Blender just with zero knowledge. Like you just go into edit mode, take a cube, just start messing around with it, and you'll make something. Like one of the first things I made was like a sword. I went back and I looked at that recently, and all of my normals are flipped. Like, well, actually not all of them. Half of my normals are flipped, which is like, it means like the light kind of will affect it in the opposite way that it would on half of the thing. and like in a simple way of explaining that, but it looked terrible in like the face view mode. But at the time I made it, I was proud of it, and I was like, wow, this looks great. And I put it on my avatar, and I had it like showed people, and they're like, oh, that's cool, you made that. And so I'm like, even like now I'm like, that's terrible. But at the time I was happy, and like I also encourage people to just try things, because it's fun to just sit down and do that and make something, even if it's objectively bad. It's still something you made, and you're happy with it.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people are kind of scared to get started, because what if it looks bad? What if I get judged? I know a lot of people are afraid to do a lot of things for that reason. And I do agree with you. Just do it. Like with that sword you mentioned. It's good to start somewhere, and even if it's not like as good as like your sword or Raptor's sword, you made it yourself.
Exactly, yeah.
Not a lot of people in the world, or at least VRChat, the average user doesn't know how to do those things.
Yeah, like all the people who are like, I'm not going to make that because it's going to be bad. Yours is better than theirs simply because theirs doesn't exist. And like that's huge.
Yeah, it is huge. Like, how often do you see people, like, for example, who want assets, and instead of creating it, they just kit bash, buy it off Gumroad or another website, throw it on an avatar? If you can make it yourself, you won't need to spend the money.
Yes.
And you're a lot more skilled than some.
When I was first starting out, that was where I got a lot of inspiration, like to make things. Was a lot of the stuff I did buy was good, and I didn't have to worry about fixing it. But then there was a couple things like in a row that I got, and I bought this, like there was like a dress for an avatar that I bought that like looked good, and I was like, oh, it's really simple. It's probably going to be like low poly there. But I didn't notice there was no poly count listed on the booth page. That's a red flag if you ever go on booth. They don't tell you the poly count, it's too many. But I got it. It was 160,000 polygons, I think, for a black, nearly skin tight dress with a necklace that was like a diamond necklace. Every single diamond on there was like 100 polys, and they're very small diamonds. It was wild. Yeah. And I was just like, I paid $25 for this. Like, this is ridiculous.
So when working in avatars for VRChat, is it like poor quality to have that many polygons, or is it too high quality?
It really depends. Like, I don't mind something having like 100, 200,000 polygons. If it's like a small group gathering with like friends, you can have a 200,000 polygon avatar, like no problem. If in a big instance, that's where it starts to affect things. But the main thing is, like, if you're going to use your polygons, like use that many polygons, make it worth it. Don't make a diamond necklace that's like not even like 1/20th of your like avatar's coverage, and just have all of it condensed into that. Like, make something like huge, like some cool like big giant weapon, or like a big dress, or like some like giant like cool coat, like something really neat. You can do a lot with 200,000 polygons.
Okay. So what are some ways to minimize and deal with high poly products within your knowledge?
The best way to do it is just there's a tool in Blender called Decimate. You have to be careful with the Decimate modifier, though, because if anything, if it has blend shapes or relies on those blend shapes to do a certain thing, it immediately breaks them, because the vertices are not in the same location, and so the blend shape doesn't know what to do. And so it breaks and turns everything into like goo whenever they try to use them. So if you're going to do that, be wary your blend shapes will break, and just delete them. Because most times blend shapes on outfits aren't really necessary. They're just to like resize a few things or something, which you can do yourself with a little bit of knowledge. But the Decimate tool in Blender is really good. There's also some tools in Unity that I'm kind of aware of, but I haven't used myself because I knew Blender at the time when they came out. Yeah.
Okay.
There's also deleting edge loops. If it's something like, if it's like a shirt or pants or some sort of like larger thing, there'll be these things called edge loops, which are essentially like where the line connects around something. Like, the easiest way to explain it is like a cylinder. Think of a cylinder as like multiple like things stacked on top of each other. Where those things meet is like the edge loop. And like you can delete those and it'll maintain the shape. Because a cylinder from top to bottom, if you add a bunch of loops in between that, those do nothing unless they're contributing like a different shape. So like there's no reason for them to exist. So like stuff that's like, I guess on like an arm, for instance, you could delete some edge loops along your arm, like right here, because these aren't going to be moving at any time. Like I would recommend like right here, like your upper arm, your upper leg, your lower leg, stuff like that. Stuff that's like in the middle of a bone that's not going to be flexing. You can massively reduce poly counts of like clothes or your own avatar, etc.
Okay. That's good to know. So generally, as you said, edge loops are used for things that move, like joints and clothes.
No, so everything kind of has edge loops in a way. It's just a method for like the vertices to flow around a model. But edge loops are just something that occurs like on models, and they're the best places to avoid or to remove them are places where something isn't going to move. So like your knee is going to flex. You don't want to remove any vertices from around your knee or like your elbow or your shoulder or something. Because if you do, it's going to look really weird and you'll notice. But you can remove it where like the middle of the bone is, because none of those are going to stretch.
Oh.
Yeah.
Good to know. Thank you for explaining that. I learned something. I like learning things. Thank you. Yep. One of the many reasons.
I learned that.
Oh.
You can go on a diet. You can go on a diet on a straight line. That's all you got to remember.
Well, I have noticed there are a lot of VRChat avatars, especially in like the dancer community, for example, that are very unoptimized. In fact, some of them are the opposite.
Yeah, it really depends. Like you can do a lot with an avatar and like still be fine for like small group instances. Like most people overblow like the optimization. Like as long as you're not like, because if you look at the avatar like description and you see like 200,000 polygons and everything else is fine, like texture memory is like 70 megabytes or something, like that's reasonable. But if you see like every single one of those is red, then it's like maybe you could drop a few of those down. You're not using all those outfits at once, are you?
Well, I do know a lot of VRChat players like customability of like their avatars and their own stuff.
I think that culture sort of derived from public avatars specifically, because if I'm looking for a public avatar, you get that avatar. Your chances of finding other avatars by that same person are kind of slim unless they have an avatar world. So like you get that avatar, you're like, okay, I want something that's like has value. And so you want outfits, you want gimmicks, like you want everything in that avatar as somebody who only uses public avatars. So I get that. Like when I was starting out, I was like, oh, that's cool. This avatar has all these different outfits I can toggle between. But then like if you're creating your own, just upload it again with the other outfit. Like nobody's going to judge you for that, and you can change into it whenever. And that's usually what I recommend to people.
Yeah, it does make sense to do things that way, especially if you're like uploading your own. I do know of most games, VRChat, like in large instances, tends to be kind of hard to run for various reasons.
Because you got to think like there's like a texture memory usage section on the avatar description. That's kind of a big one for a lot of reasons, because like that is essentially, you have that and you kind of divide your avatar, or not your avatar, your GPU's like VRAM by that amount. That's how many of you would crash your computer.
Oh.
And if you can have 80 of yourself in an instance, you're fine with VRAM. Like you'll be all right. I usually use that as sort of like a benchmark for like how good it's somebody's avatar VRAM is. There's other stuff that comes into play, like they can eat up VRAM as well, but that's like a good one to start with, texture memory.
I think the most ridiculous avatars I've seen was actually done by a friend of mine, Dara. He found a Rusk with an entire mall's worth of wardrobes on it. It was over a gig in memory.
I think I've seen that.
It was a gig.
Oh my god.
There was somebody like he He just spent like an hour just going through all the different customization. I was like, dude, loading your avatar made my PC cry.
Oh my god. There was like I think it was a Mama Hinata avatar, or like there's also a Kisma avatar that has a similar thing. They have like, they're like 750 megabytes or something crazy, but they have everything you could want. And I've played with those a few times with like some friends in like small instances. They're a lot of fun. It's just, if you have like 12 of them, the game will crash, like just straight up.
Yeah. Well, I do appreciate that like public avatar creators kind of give some level of customability. I just thought that was like the most like ridiculous one I've seen to date, was like a gig and it had like 5-6 separate categories of just clothes alone.
Yep. Yeah, I think the highest I've seen is about a gig as well of texture memory. I think it was the Rusk as well. I've seen that one around in Publix. Do you ever get that thing where because you have somebody's avatar hidden because you're in like a public, and you're like, oh, I'm talking to you, I'm going to show you your avatar, and then you see the download bar show up and it's like 300 megabytes and it's just slowly ticking up, and you're like, no.
You know, I remember once I had a few moments like that, except for me, sometimes the bar moves really quickly. And so a friend of mine who's a dancer, White, he'll have some avatars that are like really big. It's like 300 megabytes. And I see the bar go quick. It's like, oh, here comes the lag. Brace for impact. It's like that meme from Pirates of the Caribbean where Johnny Depp has the jar of dirt. He starts running really quickly with all the guys behind him. I feel like sometimes it's like that. It's like, oh, okay, cool. He runs quickly, and then here comes everything else immediately after.
Yeah, exactly.
Got a jar of dirt? I got a jar of dirt. Like, who cares if you got a jar of dirt? Yeah, I know.
Exactly.
Well, in some people's cases, they have a jar of polygons.
True. I got a jar of something, and it's going to screw you up when you finally get... Oh my god, dude, what the hell do you have for an avatar? I don't know what you're talking about. I really don't. Just watch you bounce out of the world.
Well, I think it's quite interesting that like VR social platforms kind of gives people it's very common for people to want to pick up like character and world design. Like it's very, very common here versus like the other gaming passions. You don't hear very often people that play Legend of Zelda and want to begin making models or worlds based on it.
Yeah, not at all.
But you come in VRChat and you go in a world, it's like, wow, I want to build a thing. And next thing you know, it's like now VRChat has so many people that do that kind of thing.
Yeah, specifically because it's VR, I think it just lends itself to that, because eventually there will come a point where you're like, these public avatars, they're fun and they're like interesting to play with, but at the end of the day, they just feel like toys. They don't feel like something that represents you or at all. So like you want to eventually make something like that, or ask somebody that you know to help you make something like that, and then it ends up working out that way.
Yeah. I also I think it's a good thing that VR social platforms like VRChat or Resonite have that kind of mentality, or especially since a lot of people are so very willing to teach you, and people from outside professions bring their skills in, and it's like a big amalgamation of things over time.
Yeah, exactly. And like I think one of the things that like impressed me when I first started was like, because I knew a couple like furries specifically in high school that like they went out to furcons and stuff, and they had like their fursuit, and I thought it was like a little like uncanny, but like in VR I see like somebody in a furry avatar, and I'm like, that's just an anthropomorphic animal. That's just them. Like it looks more natural in like a way, like at least like a normal person like who hasn't really associated with the furry community a whole lot like growing up. So like it feels more, I don't know, it like I guess cohesive in a way. Like to see like furries in VRChat.
Well, it's like versus real life, it's not often you see people walking around in fursuits very regularly, but in like video game or gaming style places, you see that stuff all the time. Like even in non-VR
Yeah.
VR places. You'll see anthropomorphic animals. It happens all the time. So
Yeah.
like
It's in cartoons
normal.
and stuff too. Yeah.
I'm sure if there were like furries running around regularly, people would be more
Oh yeah.
accustomed to seeing it. And I think that's
Yeah,
just
for
where
sure.
VRChat kind of gives you that feeling, because you go in a world, there's a bunch of them everywhere.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's like like almost in Dragon Ball Z, you know, like they have like the tiger people just walking around in like the city wearing like a t-shirt. I'm just like, yeah, it just reminds me of that kind of. Like you just see like some random tiger man just sitting in like the background of like a play, and like nobody even mentions it. He's just there.
Well, I'm glad VRChat gives people a place to feel like, I guess, comfortable to be something. It's like if in the real world, if I was to like dress as this orange tangerine with 3 tails and running around, it would be a little bit different of a feeling versus like VR. Because in VR, we're accustomed to seeing that thing.
For sure.
Though I am glad that VR gives a place to be comfortable and learn. It's so common, people willing to teach their passions. In fact, I see a lot of people willing to like, oh, you have a problem? Well, let me explain to you for about 30 minutes how to fix your problem, and they'll sit and teach you, and then poof, off they go.
Oh yeah. I've had that happen before. Like I've met some people who like I've talked to in the Pug. I got some avatar like texturing and modeling tips from somebody who was just in like the Pug one time. They're wearing like a Star Trek outfit and I was like, oh, that's a really nice Star Trek outfit. Where'd you get that? They're like, oh, I modeled it myself, and it was like hyper realistic and looked great. And they like sat there for 45 minutes explaining to me like their in-depth process, start to finish, how they made it. And I'm like, just like looking at them like the whole time, just like, wow, that's crazy. Like I learned a lot. Just like you'll just have interactions like that constantly. It's so awesome.
Most times, and I've had that happen a few times, where people start explaining how to fix a thing on an avatar I'm wearing, and they'll start going in depth, and I just kind of sit there with like the equivalent of like math numbers going by my head, not knowing what they all mean. It's like, I wish I knew half the stuff you did, but to me that sounds like spoken hieroglyphics. It is really cool that
something I definitely like to do.
Sorry. It's like telling somebody how to use a road map. Take the blue line to the green line and get off on the blue one on the other side of it. That you're going, what? Yeah, it makes about the same sense, don't it? Yeah. You get.
I never understood that. Like when I was a kid, we had to use like maps sometimes. Like because I'm like 30, so when I was a kid, for a brief period of time when I was a kid, we had to use maps before Google Maps and GPS was invented. But I do remember like my dad would stop and ask for directions, and then somebody just like blurt out like a big thing. Nobody would write a thing down, and I'm like, how are you going to remember that? There's no way.
You know,
it's a lot like that.
Yeah, I always envy. Well, imagine being like, I'd say 50 years back before GPS and things existed. Just imagine if you're the delivery driver and you're like, yep, here you have to go to Bangview Road over in this street, other side of town, and you've never heard of it. How the fuck would you find it?
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know. Like,
thank you.
Yeah.
Love you to death. 50 years ago. Thank you very, very much. You're such a hero, buddy.
Well, like when you were growing up, finding like roads and stuff that which you couldn't. I'm gonna dig myself further in the hole because I'm going to. I know you. There's a difference.
Do.
Oh my God.
Thanks. Oh yeah.
How often can I speak to someone who's your age and just go, you know, I envy the fact that you could go, like back when you were a kid, you can maneuver around a city and not be lost. Sometimes when I go into a new city, I couldn't find Jack Diddley Squad even with the GPS.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy to think that like people knew, like they had their routes memorized, and like just, I have that some ways with like paths to work and whatnot, but past that, like it's really hard to navigate some stuff without a GPS. Like I think we've just kind of lost that like internal sort of compass in a way. Like it's still there for like navigating like a house, or like I feel like I could probably tell you the directions to get to like a specific spot in a video game, like start to finish, but I can't tell you how to get to a restaurant in the like downtown. And I go there to eat.
You know, I think it's kind of this similar thing to where people now have a hard time remembering phone numbers. Like since cell phones have the address book, you don't need to know the numbers. Like if you're to ask, hey kid, or you, do you know your mom's phone number by heart? If the phone didn't exist, how would you contact anybody? You just kind of hit a bunch of random buttons and hope you know somebody.
Yeah, the only phone numbers I remember are my mom's, my dad's, my girlfriend's, and I think my grandma's, which isn't relevant anymore because that's been offline for years. But like, because I had to type those in a lot. Like, but other than that, I wouldn't remember any of them. I'd have to have them wrote down.
I think this is so funny.
Why?
Just watching you two is so funny. Because I was raised, I got to where I could understand and everything else like this. My dad used to do it to me is go, okay, where are we at? How do we get home? That was my dad. And you had to tell him where to turn, where, and everything else like this. Still today, where I was originally born at, I can actually take you back to my old house. Way back.
I can take you to my grandma's house because I used to drive there as a as a teen. I would drive there like I wanted to get my temps, and I would drive around like that area, and I could probably get there like easily. But anywhere like after that point, I just kind of stopped internalizing a lot of those because it's not necessary information anymore. We shoved it out and made room for other things, I guess.
Well, the biggest thing anymore that what it is you train your brain. You don't even realize it. But if somebody come up and ask you for directions, you stand there and go, you have to stop and think about it. Because see, you do it day in, day out. But if you turn around and somebody come up and ask you directions, you have to stop, think, because you're not looking at road signs, you're looking at landmarks. You train your brain to pick landmarks that are there. Car lot on certain corner. Gas station, da-da-da, on certain corner. You got to go up 6 lights and take a left. You learn how to train yourself that way and everything else like this. But it's funny to hear people that, you know, I have kids. I finally got my youngest daughter to actually remember her Social Security card number. How many kids is that? If you ask today, go up and ask me, can you rattle off your Social Security to yourself? I don't need to hear it. Most of them go, what? What the hell do I need to do that for? Because it's something that wasn't trained to them today, because you just pull it out of your wallet and there it is, and you got it on hand. Why do or put it in your phone or vice versa? You know, you use the electronics to take up the easiest route and everything. And I bet you 10 to 1 today, if somebody walked up and go, hey, how do you get to so-and-so street? And it was asked, you're going to whip out your phone and point it out and show them on your phone. It's the simplest way to show them.
For me personally, I couldn't, like, if people tell me, oh, you have to go to this street here, I don't know street names, but I can drive there with my eyes closed. Like, within my surrounding area, I probably know the surrounding, like, 10 or 12 cities, enough to get to places I need to go. So if you tell me you have to go to this city at this road, it's like, what road? And I'll look up, oh, that road, and then I'll start listing landmarks all the way there.
Okay.
That's how way I do it. Like, I don't know street names. I can drive many of the roads surrounding me, but you ask me what the roads are called. It's a thing with a giant statue of a thing on it. You know, I would give specifics, but people know where I live at that point.
Yeah, and I think we still have that, like, because like I mentioned video games earlier, that part of the brain's still there, like the pathfinding sort of aspect. Because like I know all the like spots in Dark Souls 1, like I could take you anywhere in that game. Can't take you downtown to the pizza shop though without a GPS.
Without a GPS, how to get there? It's the biggest thing is, like you say, you train yourself. To learn your own location. It's a weird thing because I had something I was told. Here's one that's weird. You'll have more of an accident on a route that you're used to compared to one you don't know about.
Because you get complacent. That's why.
Yeah, that's right.
If you're like
comfortable, you get comfortable in your surrounding route compared to if I send you to another route, you're not going to have an an accident as much as if you travel a route that you're used to and everything else like this. It's weird. It's just weird how the mind works in weird ways. And it's the same thing of making a game or something like this. After a while, you know the ins and outs of the game, and you get somebody new that comes and joins you in a group form. The first thing they do is they run up to you. How do you do this and this? Dude, just play the game. Just play the game. How are you going to learn if I do it all for you? And it's just one of those things. And it's the same thing in here when somebody comes up and you're talking about how to make this or make that, and they instead of asking, just listen. You learn a lot just by paying attention to what somebody else is explaining, and you're going to learn a lot. Now, you're not going to get it down to a science, but hopefully you friend that person and come back again and go, I tried that, and I'm completely off the wall, like I am now in here, what you guys are talking about, because it's not my thing. It's not saying it's not my thing. I'm curious about it. It's just the idea, me doing it, it'd be like me going over and trying to chase down a chicken and pluck its feathers while it's walking. That's pretty stupid. Wouldn't you shoot it first, then pluck it? Yeah, that's pretty much the route you go.
Yeah.
Reasons like that are one of the reasons why I tell a lot of people, like, even if you don't like who's around you, at least converse with people. You can learn quite a lot, even if you don't like what they believe,
absolutely,
or who they worship, or what their politics are. At least speak and listen, because you can learn a lot from people, even if it's why they believe or think a thing. There's still some good knowledge to have.
For sure. Yeah, like I did my major in college was anthropology, so I studied a lot of like culture and like studying like humans, human interactions, and stuff like that. And VRChat is just like extremely fascinating from an anthropological standpoint. It's like an unbelievable just mixing of culture and like twisting of culture in like all these weird ways. Like it's so fun.
So may I ask, are there any examples from that standpoint that interest you about VRChat?
Just like all the implications of like who the self is. It's more like, I guess, more of a philosophical question than like an anthropological question. But like people, like it really shows like, is somebody more their avatar than they are in real life? Because like you can express yourself through your avatar in ways that you can't in real life by just, especially if you're a creative type. And so like that adds all these like implications to just avatar creation and like adding stuff in general. Like it's so fascinating.
Yeah, because it allows you to explain your psyche in a more of a physical, viewable manner than you could in real life. Although you could still technically do that, it would just take a bit more creative thinking in real life.
It's significantly more expensive in real life, I would say.
Indeed.
Yeah, mostly expensive.
I do. One of my favorite pastimes is world hopping, and I enjoy doing that for a similar reason. Just because, when someone made a world like the one we're in, they spend hours, days, or weeks, months, depending on the world, maybe even years if it's a big one.
Yeah.
Hand placing things, modeling things, putting on purpose, so you could see into their thought process a little bit just by taking a look.
Yeah.
It isn't like a lot of stuff here is purposeful.
Yeah, I go to a lot of different worlds. There's a group I go with most nights called the Adventure Team, where they go through the labs worlds. They have like a big spreadsheet of like every labs world that is like interesting, and they try and hit all of them. They go day in, day out, multiple shifts of people, and like they try to hit all of them. And some of the like most interesting worlds I've seen were worlds that are just like not like traditionally like good worlds. They're just like somebody made a thing, and it's like, even if it's not like super professional like this world or whatever, you can see like the thought process of the person who put everything in this world, even if it's like extremely simple. Like a human sat down in their free time and made this, and it's like fascinating. Like it's awesome to see that. Even the most simple things like Unity skybox with a couple cubes in it or whatever. That was somebody's project.
I One of the first things I get into personally for the VRChat was world hopping, and over time I began learning there's so many worlds not a lot of people know about, but are so amazing to see. Like there's a whole lot of fantastical gems out here that are just lost in the weeds.
Hey, keep me out of
absolutely.
Keep me out of the weed patch, okay? I can't see past the internet.
Raptor, I can't see you in the weed patch. You're as big as the weeds are.
I know, but hey, if they need somebody to find out that they missed the spot, I'm the one looking for it.
I'd tie a balloon to you, but you'd be carried off by the balloon.
Hey, I weigh a little bit more than that. Jeez, give me a little break.
You must be very dense.
Are you trying to say I'm fat? Or I need to be fatter? Which one are you trying to tell me?
I'm saying you're not fat enough.
Oh, I'm not fat enough.
Oh.
You don't get that very often. Put on some weight, boy.
God.
Funny thing, my older half sister, like I think I was like in my teenage years, told me that I need to put on skin and bones or put on meat on my bones.
Really?
Yeah, this was like one of the first times since I was like really single digits meeting her, and she sat me down and just kept on feeding me. She lives in the South, so I'm sure it's a lot common, but I was like very scrawny at that point. She sat me down and just kept on feeding me food. It was the most interesting experience personally I've ever been a part of.
I bet. Can you stop shoveling it in my face? I only can hold so much. What do you think I am? Not like
she was a good cook.
Like a horse anyhow.
I'll tell her that. The food tasted amazing.
That's a keeper. That's a keeper right there. All the way around. Yeah. Everybody's man. Everything to a man's soul is food.
Well, Brikaro, thank you so very much for chatting with us. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to meet you.
That was awesome.
Where can people find you or your work if they wish to reach out?
My Twitter is twitter.com/BrikaroVR, BRIKAROVR. My Twitch is twitch.tv/Brikaro. I also have a Blue Sky, which is also was it bsky.something/Brikaro. You'll find it. Yeah. That's like the main places.
We'll check the Hoobly was it as well. We'll put that down there for you. Go down the thingamabobble.
Awesome.
No problem. Raptor, you know the thing.
Okay, I'll do my best on this one because I was completely lost, but I got some ideas. No matter what you do, folks, if you're going to take that blue line on that map and try to jump on the green one, no matter where you are in VR, all you got to do is just open up and say, hey, I'm lost. Can you help me out? I bet take that blue line on that map and try to talk to you later. Bye.
Oh, the funny thing is, before you close that, I froze during the last bit.
Yes. Oh, my God.
Bye, everybody.
There we go.